Okay, so this is session 3. And Catherine as well. Okay, so who would like to start with a share? Anything to report? And did you listen to Catherine's playlist again?
I did. It's for Charlie.
Hello.
Hello. I'm just eating, so I'll put my camera on in a minute. But
Don't
yeah,
worry.
I listened to Catherine's playlist, and I had a bit of a up and down experience, really. The middle bit, I just wanted to switch off. I found it really hard to listen to. Obviously, it was really good for me to feel like that. But yeah, it was. I liked the beginning, and then something happened in the middle where I was just like, "What is this?" Yeah, and I just had some really strange dreams afterwards as well. Really strange dreams about old friends. So that was really interesting. Like friends that I've not been in touch with for about 20 years. Like old friends. Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
good, good.
Hmm. Thank you. Okay. Anybody else?
Shall I go? Shall I say hello?
Yeah, hi Katie. Happy birthday for last week.
Hiya, thank you. I I haven't listened to it. I completely forgot. I need to get this to-do list that Chris has put up and have it and a tick box because yeah, I'm a bit scatterbrained if I hear things and it's not written down and I quite struggle with organizational skills. So that I need to do that. But what's really interesting is that, and listening to what you said about it last week, how it sort of stirred and there was a kind of irritation. It was quite provocative for people. Um, and that's just how I felt last week in general. So I didn't listen to the playlist, but I did think it was interesting that sort of sort of unsettled irritation, and I thought it was because it was my birthday and I was a stroppy teenager and things weren't going the way I wanted them and people weren't out to play when I wanted them to be. And it wasn't what I wanted. um and I was like, what is wrong with me? But just to acknowledge that I feel like a brat and really stroppy. So that's kind of how I felt last week. And I was like, there's lists to things coming up. So I didn't listen to it, and I will. So I apologize because I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I get a bit forgetful. But I will. But that was what I was thinking when you were saying that.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Following on from you, Katie, I also didn't listen to it again. Sorry, Catherine. It went out of my mind. If it's not written down, I'm going to forget. So I just completely forgot that that was a thing. But I'm very interested to do like a comparison because I've heard it once, and obviously, yeah, it was a really powerful experience. But yeah, I'd like to do a comparison with how it feels the second time around. So I will for sure listen to it, Catherine. Don't worry. But yeah, as for this last week, it's been very the same. Like every day, sort of being the same as the last. It's all sort of blurred into one. It's been a very busy, hectic week, but it's every day has been busy and hectic, so they're all just blurred. And then tomorrow I'm going on an adventure, so that's going to be much better. So yeah, not too much to report.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I obviously need to write more harassing messages in the group then. Like, have you done?
No, that would be really helpful. Like tick box, this is your homework. Go and do all of these things.
That's it. It's a tick
Okay.
list.
Yeah.
So it's in one place. Because when it's a bit here and it's a bit there and it's a bit there, I can't keep track of it. Or I
Yeah.
struggle.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for doing that, Chrissy. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, I was struggling with bits everywhere, so I tried to compile it. But yeah, I'm just getting over COVID, so like I was coming down with it like in the last session, but didn't realise. And so I've had a really, really shit week. Like major high temperature for like 3 days, and yeah, like very flu kind of like symptoms. And then I was really anxious because I'm meant to be assisting on a training that starts tonight, and like it was just such a gift to get on it. But it looks like I like my symptoms are gone, and so I can arrive tomorrow. But yeah, it's been a really anxious, really unpleasant, physically horrible week. And I did listen to Catherine's playlist, and I have to say that, like, well, I still like, especially when it's a short one, I'm not sure it's really, I can't distinguish what it does, but I quite liked it. Like, it's possibly, yeah, I like the noises and the sounds, and yeah, so maybe the whole agitated picture like fits me better than the others. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you. And good that you're feeling better as well. Yeah. Lucy, do you want to share anything?
Yeah, I didn't listen again. I think to Catherine's playlist again. I think I just missed that piece of information, but I feel better that I'm maybe not the only one, but I will listen again. And I guess my only observation is I know the first time I listened to it, I think I mentioned about I felt like energy at the top of my back, like in my spine, and it was like a fizzy energy. And then what I've noticed is when I've been doing some self-healing over the past week, it's still there. So if anything, it's maybe just like zhuzh something up in my system, but it feels like there's maybe a bit of a block. So it's thank you for highlighting that for me. But yeah, and I guess it's been there's still quite a bit of chaos in my life, and just as I think it's all finished, it's not. But I'm just going with it. Life isn't calm, but I am calm, and that's good enough today. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you. Catherine, anything to report?
No, it's been really interesting listening to people's feedback. It's been great and interesting. And it's been really interesting that Lucy's got sitting across her shoulders because I've had that for about 3 months now. So I find that like a really strange coincidence. And yeah, well, so that's interesting. I've pretty much had a week off playlisting because I really want to put a song in and I can't get it to fit. So I've had a tantrum. Well, okay. That's been my week. Tantrums.
Thank you. Kerry, are you still eating? Or you?
I've finished eating, thank you. And
Yeah.
it's really interesting listening to what people say and sort of thinking back over patterns in my life. And I find this full moon and then through into Lionsgate is always quite a turbulent period for me. And I think that's probably very characteristic of what is going on in my life at the moment. There's a lot of hassly bits interspersed with this is amazing, this is lovely. And yeah, I don't know, it's been an interesting, very mixed week with, just to pick up on the theme, quite a lot of anxiety really. Catherine, I've listened a couple of times through to yours, but not as an inner dance, but with a sort of more technical head on to try and unpick what you've done a bit. And it's, you know, still just going, wow, this is really good stuff. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I've also had a really busy week as well, and then I made this new playlist that we're going to listen to little bits through tonight to give you examples, and so I was quite immersed in that for a few days, and yeah, and trying to make it really like 12 songs, 12 stages. This was so difficult for me. So there's ended that I think there's 14, but because a couple are overlapped with each other, I was like, I just have to put this in here. And yeah, and it was an interesting process for me in sort of thinking about, I guess, what you get used to doing, and then also like really stripping it back as well, and thinking of, say, like jumping around with songs on the phone when we can't mix them together, and how different it can be as well. So yeah, so I had a sort of little process of my own of like, oh yeah, and how do I like it in this way, and how do I want to do it in that way, and yeah, but yeah, very busy as well. Um so yeah, I did my best to put together songs as examples for the stages. Of course, though, this is my interpretation as to where I've been at in the last week or the last 5 days. So nothing is fixed of it has to be like this, or it has to be this specific kind of song. If I did it again tomorrow, I'd probably choose completely different songs. So, or even after this session tonight, I'd probably choose something else. So it's always relative to what's happening for you in your own life and emotionally and everything. And also, although you don't know who's going to be coming to maybe a particular session, or who's going to be coming into your life through your inner dance sort of sessions, it's also dependent on the energy of the people in the future who are going to be at some point lying down to your playlist. And of course, this could be even 2 years ahead in the future. We don't know, because you're going to use your playlists again and again. It's not just one and then throw it away. You can keep using them. So it's quite a quantum entanglement type thing, like who is instigating the music, and is it coming from you, or is it coming from them, or is it a mixture? Is it coming from somewhere else entirely? And because we're going to be listening to it, and I'll be explaining each stage as well, it will, whether you feel it very strongly or not, it still will take you into some kind of process tonight by going through this. And often people don't realize, and then we get to the end of it and they're a bit like, whoa, what just happened? Where have I just been? Even though we've been discussing it and kind of talking on a more technical aspect as well. But of course, the order of the stages is the order of the stages. So it's going to infiltrate you because there's these different frequencies. One of the ways that I think of it is it's a way to explore your life as to what you know of it right now. And it's also a way to explore the deathing of yourself, or deathings, because there's so many layers that we can die to ourselves. And I always think about in the ancient times with shamans, or with the ancient Egypt, they were looking at how to map out the astral world, and this was one of the ways that of why they were using the Blue Lotus, because it opened a gateway into astral travel and lucid dreaming. So they were using the dream temples here to map out another realm, so that when they passed out of the physical body, they could then find their way. And they also, in ancient cultures, they buried shamans that were very powerful on ley lines. So if you think of like on a runway at night and you've got the lights along that guide the pilot, it's almost like the people that were buried were these energies or light frequencies that were guiding people out and onto other planes of existence. So it can be kind of these polarities of like very here and very what's happening in your life right now, with relationships, with jobs, with security and money, and parents, and stuff from when you were a kid, and things that are very sort of visceral and maybe more obvious. And then it can also go to these other places that are completely galactic, completely beyond comprehension, and sort of in a way that maybe you might not have words for, or you might not even know exactly what was happening. But in one way or another, the way that the experience shows up for each person, it's still all relative to now as well, what's happening now. And there can also be ancestral sort of effects or stories coming up, and also from other lifetimes. So the way that I look at it again is more on a quantum level, that rather than it's linear of you've got past lives and then future lives and future generations and past generations, it's actually all happening simultaneously and more like a spiral. So there's you, and then there's these other versions of you that maybe got split off. And if you could think of it that every time you make a choice, there's a version of you that goes one way, there's a version another way, then there's something else. There's like an everyday, how many choices do we make, and how many versions of ourselves could this create? And even more so if there's been any kind of traumas in your life as well. And this can of course be things that are like very severe, but it can also be something that maybe you took on as it something that maybe was a trauma for you because of your age, or if you were very young, that you couldn't understand why it was happening, and so you took it as something that was very big for you at that time, but you as an adult now wouldn't necessarily think it was something big, but for whatever reason you held it in that way. So as an example for myself, I have this toy cat, which I still have now, and I've had it since I was 2, when my sister was born. And when we were growing up, she was really tiny and couldn't really kind of beat me up or anything. And also she was very soft and just non-confrontational. But the only way that she could get to me was to get this toy cat and swing it around her head and make me get into a tug of war with it so that the tail would get pulled off. And this went on through our childhood. So for me, this was really like I would be so furious and also so traumatized because of all the things that toy cat represented to me that was about safety. And so it was then only as an adult when I kind of things happened that were about this particular trauma that happened. And I know it's almost like laughing on one hand, like, oh God, when we used to do that, in tug of war with the cat, but at the same time, realizing that, yeah, that really fucked me up, even though she wasn't trying to do it in a way thinking, oh, this will still be fucking with her when she's in her 30s, because it's something at such a deep, deep level. So stuff can show up that it's there that your body's holding and you don't even know. And of course we always have things that we think, oh yeah, I remember this happened and it was terrible, or this happened and I felt really connected with this person. And like we always have these sort of memories we can draw on. But in a way, they're the things that we're allowing ourselves to remember because maybe it's safe to remember them, or because we feel righteous in some way, maybe, or we feel like a victim in some way. But underneath all of those, like the more obvious things, of course, there's so many things that can show up. And it can bounce between them. So sometimes you can have a session where you think not really anything happened, but I felt very blissful and very just really chilled out. And it was nice to have a rest. Often people will say this, that they hadn't been sleeping well, or they've had a busy week or something, and it was nice just to stop. And yeah, what's wrong with that? It doesn't have to be fireworks, like I said last week. And then sometimes, like I've experienced this, of a complete dissolving of myself, where I wasn't nothing and everything all at the same time. I was feeling everything, but then also didn't have a physical body, and felt like I was really, really far away from anything or anyone. And then coming back, knowing, and this is also part of doing grounding, because when you have this really strong grounding cord, you can go off, and you know that you because you've built up a discipline of being embodied, you can come back to yourself. It might take a bit of time. Like the last time for me, it was about 15 minutes, and I couldn't open my eyes because everything was so heavy. I'd taken my top off. I looked at my top and I was like, I know I'm supposed to do something with this, but I don't know what it is. Like, what is it? What do I do with this thing? And after about 5 minutes, I understood again. And I've had people where maybe they've forgotten, I don't know, like the password to their computer, and these like really everyday things, because their brain has got rewired in some way. And the times that this has happened to me, I've then also cried a lot, because it's felt like coming back to my body, and then coming back to this was so heavy and so dense, and this feeling of no, like not this place again. And why does everything have to feel so, yeah, just so solid and awkward. And then on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, I've had really like physical experiences, and I've been stomping and banging and sort of like hitting the floor and hitting the pillow and this sort of stuff, and like and crying, but then crying in this other way, whether it's grief or anger, and screaming, and it's felt something really like something very primal is coming out. So there can be lots of stories with the process, but it's better to not look for the stories. That's what I would say, because this then creates a whole other spider's web, and sort of looking to justify things all the time, and we don't really need to. It's more important what's coming out of the release and what's creating the space in you. But sometimes you'll get very obvious stories that it's like boom, boom, this, and also you might get a piece of that story that you'd never allowed yourself to see before. So really, I always say it's everything and nothing. Expect everything, expect nothing, and the less expectations you have, then the more surrender you can go into. So yeah, the sort of deathing and learning how to die with grace. How can we die to ourselves and to all these versions of us that we've been holding on to, and oh, I don't want to change this, and I can't let people see me in this way, and what might it be like to let all of that fall away. And this for me is another version of what inner dance is, what it's about. Okay, so any questions so far or anything? No? Okay. So Kerry, thank you as well for sending the diagrams, the beans. Like, what the fuck are the beans? So the bean one, Tom created this. It's quite a few years ago now. And this has been really helpful, I think, for everybody in inner dance who's been making playlists. And I've always been holding trainings and using this as an example. At the time, though, we weren't talking so much about gamma wave, which the new one, which I only got last week, is has got gamma. But when you compare them side by side, whether you've got them now or at a later date, and it's good if you can print them out, because yeah, then you've got it. I always find it easier when they're printed. It's a little bit different in where the levels are. So if you can see it at the side, there's the hertz of the brain waves that we looked at last week. On the new one, it hasn't got those hertz, it's just got the actual brainwave names. And they've got slightly, yeah, they've got different names as well along the bottom of it's sort of the opposite way round. She's done it with the stages across the top, and Tom's got the stages across the bottom. And then the beans are giving us a little commentary, whereas the new one has sort of got a more like a feeling, emotions connected to it. So I'll go between the two as we're talking about this today. Some people have said that they feel that these 12 stages are similar to the hero's journey, which is also 12 stages. And Fee, who she can't be here tonight, she said she's realized that it's also similar to things in the 12-step program for addictions as well. And she's had some insights into yeah, how they correspond with each other. So it seems to be that as a general archetypal journey, that it fits with a lot of different things. Okay, let me go to the screen share. So let's just see if you can hear it. Let me know. Okay. Doesn't seem. One sec. I'm gonna close it and come back to it. It did an update literally before I called in on the Zoom, and then it's being weird, of course. Mm. It played as well at the beginning. At the beginning when we did a test. This is when I have to put it on myself on mute and say fuck for a few minutes. Do a Hulk smash onto the floor. Oh, for fuck's sake. Um, yeah, the play button is being weird. Okay. Um, right. I also have it saved out of Audacity. I wanted to show you in that so that you could see where the different tracks come, but maybe sorry everybody.
It's okay. Maybe come out of Audacity and go back in. Does that work?
Yeah, I've done that 3 times and it's just in fact my
Mm.
whole laptop is doing some weird stuff. Right, hang on a sec. Yeah, when I press play on it, the play button's just flickering and not doing anything. So, okay. Right, let me try a different way.
You might need to
Sorry.
restart your laptop, because
Yeah,
sometimes
because
when
of
it's done an update, then it just needs a restart. You'll lose the Zoom briefly, but might be worth a try.
well, I've got it as a VLC or whatever it's called.
Mm.
Let's see if it will work with this, but it just won't show you where the different layer. Let's see if this works.
I can hear that.
Yeah. Well, luckily, almost as if some part of me knew this was going to happen, I wrote down the timing of where each song starts. You little fucker, Audacity. Okay, could everybody hear that? It's quite quiet at the beginning. Yeah. So this is going to be stage 1, and I'll play a little bit, a couple of minutes from this. So this is stage 1, and it goes on like this for just over 7 minutes. And the reason for this, that it's so long, like sometimes you might even have 10 or 12 minutes for stage 1, is because this is the first part. Well, it's the beginning after you've done your introduction. So it could be that you've got somebody who's gone to the toilet, or people are, you say lie down, they lie down and they fidget, they put their jumper on, they put it off, they fiddle with their contact lenses, they suddenly remember they didn't switch their phone off, like all these things that the first minute or two is all, I always call it, it's like faffing time. And so you want to give plenty of time for people to get settled and for there to be stillness in the room. This song, I overlaid two parts with it, because there was the delta, what we call delta sounding part, and I overlaid the birds tweeting because I felt like I needed to bring a little bit of lightness to it, because I know that I have this ability to go straight for the um, carotid artery. Like, and when I listened back, I was like, yeah, it's the first song. It kind of still needs a bit of lightness to be there. So it's like this creeping, growling sound coming in. So yeah, so there's actually 2, but all that you need to do is find 12 songs, as I said in the message. And this first one, Delta, the stage is called Satisfaction. And it's like people come from all different backgrounds, all different experiences. You might have some people in there that have done a lot of inner dance, and they don't need to hear the intro even, and they walk in and they're ready to go, and their body is primed also. It's like they walk in the door and they're in it, and you have to say to them sometimes, hold on, there's new people here. But they're lying on the mat already and maybe even shaking or screaming. Sometimes if people are really have done inner dance a lot, they might scream in the first 30 seconds because they're just waiting to pop. So this can be a bit strange when you've got completely new people, because they're like, what's happening here? And yeah, and then you're going to have people that are new, people who have been before, and maybe they want to go deeper, and then others that might have resistance. You're going to have a whole mix of where people are at, and you can't assume that whatever's happened to the person in a session before, that it's going to be the same again. So it's important to get that across to your group every time, or if you're doing one-to-ones. It's really important to say that it's different every time, and also to remind yourself of that, so that you treat them in a fresh way every time as well, and you don't assume that, oh, I did this on them last time and it made that happen. And so we're not thinking of, oh, I'm making things happen, or what can I do to make somebody scream. All what we're doing is we're holding a safe space, so that we can give people little nudges and pokes and support, but ultimately it's them who are making things happen, or it's parts of them. Because sometimes people will say to you, maybe at the end, or message you, and they'll say, oh, you, like, when you did this, you made this happen for me. But it isn't that. It seems like that because sometimes there can be a instantaneous reaction, but it's more like we're just giving this little, hey, you there, and then their body goes, okay, I'm ready. How can I deal with this? So Delta and the satisfaction, you can think of it as a yoga nidra, but we're doing it at the beginning instead of at the end. And it's really about getting people to relax, to feel comfortable, because lying down in a room of maybe strangers with your eyes closed, of course, it might feel vulnerable for people, and they might not have met you before either. And you're saying, okay, close your eyes, and you might hear sounds, but everything's okay. And I'm gonna touch you, but everything's okay. And it's quite a huge unknown quantity of what's going on. And and it's also pacifying the ego, you could say, that, oh, it's like we're just lying down, and my friend told me that she was like jumping around in a screeching last week, and I don't feel anything like that. What is she talking about? Like nothing like that is ever going to happen to me, because there's nothing wrong with my life. So there can be this happening as well, and this can also later on maybe show up as resistance. So it's like, yeah, creating safety, creating trust, and yeah, and opening the space. And it also gives you a chance to assess what's happening, because a big part of facilitating is observation. You can see from the way that people lie down, especially in England, and it's always bloody freezing in these village halls, and people come with 3 blankets and a sheepskin, and they really took themselves in, and then you're trying to get their arm out or move their feet, and people can hide themselves away when it's, yeah, in colder countries. So yeah, you can see, like, how do people lie down naturally? Because you're not telling them lie down in a certain way, just lie down and close your eyes. So, are they like this? Are they like this? Have they already pulled the cover over their head? Have they got their hands in a particular area of their body, like they're protecting it or they're nurturing it? And are they lying open? Are they quite contained? And this will tell you a lot straight away. Also, the way that they can breathe, assuming you can see this through all the layers. So are they breathing into their belly? Is it shallowly? Is it fast? Is it slow? Is it through their mouth? Is it through their nose? Some people go straight into REM, especially the people that have more experience of innerdance. So you might see that their eyes are flickering, or their eyes might be rolling back a little bit. Have they closed their eyes, even though you've asked them to? Some people won't, and they'll be looking around and like, what's happening here? And they want to check out what's going on. What's this weird music that's being played? And the kind of music that you want to look for this stage is something repetitive, where there's nothing to hold on to, and something maybe connected with nature. So something like waves on a beach, or it could be quite a spacey sound, but it's quite constant. And there's no rhythm or voice. There's no distractions, because they're in life all the time. Everything's distracting. So we're bringing a quiet space that it might be uncomfortable, which is coming up in the next stage, where it's like a realization of, oh, there's nothing to distract me, and there's just no busyness going on. There's not these like constant things vying for my attention. And then it can be, oh, where where am I in this space? So those of you facilitators on the advanced course, have you got anything to add? Don't tell me no.
I think it's always interesting that, and you've picked it up yourself, that there's that sort of that undertone in that track, that is almost menacing. And yet for me, this first stage is very much about the relaxation, the safety, the reassurance, but you just have that harbinger what is going to come. And yeah.
I can't help myself.
Yeah.
Honestly, I was going through I'd got a load of songs saved in my laptop, and I was like, right, I need a Delta for the beginning. Could not find any Delta songs except that one. I was like, come on, this is a bit. And in the end, I thought, okay, do it. And then I thought, no, I have to put something over it, and yeah, the birds. But yeah, something with this song, and maybe that's also why I was drawn to it. It would suit people better that have some experience of inner dance. Whereas for beginners, as Kerry said, it might feel a bit like Hansel and Gretel in the woods. Where am I being led? So I've already done a rubbish example for number one. Ah,
Katie froze.
Yeah. Katie, are you still there? Have you gone? She's still in the group. No. Gone. Hmm. Anybody else want to say anything about that track or stage one while we wait for her to rejoin?
Yeah, I think it's all been said, hasn't it? It's just giving that reassurance, safety, trust is. But you can talk, can't you? Even though there's no lyrics, you can talk about reassuring them and
Yeah.
yeah.
Catherine, you want to add anything? That's Katie just come back in.
I always see this one as the one I've got to get through. You've just got to find something that's relaxing and just get through it. And then and then the real music can start. Yeah, so it's about bringing that comfort and that safety. And but I find the more playlists I do, the shorter this section gets to me. So they started off at 12 to 15 minutes of lovely, relaxing music. Now they're about 2. So yeah. But I very much see it as a stage, as a facilitator to just wait for people to stop fidgeting, like you said, and so that you can get going.
yeah, and it might be something that you have to adjust it slightly depending on who's there. Say you've got like you don't know exactly who's coming to your session, and you have got total everybody's a beginner, then you might need it for 12 minutes because they're going to need that extra time, because this is also the time when you're going to be speaking like cues or yeah, like not instructions, but you're sort of guiding people into it. And also you're going to be putting them into a starfish position, which we're going to go through this when we're together in person, because you'll get to starfish each other. And so you need, if people have got less experience, of course they need more time to let go. Whereas ones who, even if they've been to a couple of sessions, they know what's happening and potentially what's going to come up maybe for them or within the space. And so then you might only need 6 or 7 minutes. And then if you've got people that are really, like they're all facilitators, you might just need 5 minutes, because it is every stage is all equally important. So I know, like we just said, like, oh, okay, everyone faps and then like get on with it. But actually, the delta stages are probably the most out of all the importance of them. But they're the chances for expansion, and when people let go and they drop in deeper. So we call it the delta drops. The more of the drop feeling is going to come later on. But this first stage, along with your introduction, it really sets the stage as to what's going to come. So yeah, so it's not to sort of cut corners with it. And I'd say go, if you're not sure, go for longer than less, because you can always skip the song if you've got less, but if you've got more. But if you've got less, you can't add to it unless if you're doing it, say, on Spotify, and you can just put the song on again to repeat, like I've done that at times. And then you might get halfway through that same song again, and then you think, okay, now they're ready, and you can go into stage 2.
Katie, I think the other thing is that you often, and I do it too, is you play the delta music during the introduction. So they've already been listening to oh, I don't know, the Shiva, the Chants of Shiva, or the Ishvan, that one. I forget what it's called, but one of those that are quite good introductory tracks. And they've maybe been listening to that for 20 minutes before we lie down. So it's really creating that delta sense in advance. Yeah.
And also you could have, and these could be the same delta track, or you could have a couple of different ones, so that when people arrive, it's playing as well already. So they're taking their coats off and they're getting organized, and they're hearing it, yeah, for quite some time, and then having it very quietly while you give your introduction. So yeah, so stage 1, satisfaction, it's like all the places that we're held and holding ourselves in life's boxes. We're lying down and we're in these self-composed boxes, not knowing what our potential and possibilities are. Or maybe we do know, but we're too afraid to go to them. So, okay. Could you make me host again, please? Hello. Out of the way. Then we're going to stage 2, is dissatisfaction. On this playlist that I've done, some songs overlap and others I've done with gaps between them, and you'll be able to hear this better when you listen to it in its entirety. The reason for that is because of the stages, and also sometimes because of the way the songs begin and end. And I wanted to give some as a smooth overflow or overlay, and then others to have more abrupt stops and starts, because this space in between the songs, or the shock, can also instigate a lot within people's bodies and minds. And yeah, there's so much that can show up from whether it's agitation that somebody gets because afterwards they'll say, oh, you cut that song right in the middle and I really like it. Why would you do that? Why didn't you play the whole song? And then other times a song has driven them crazy because they hate it and it went on and on for them for ages. You know, why did you keep that song playing? It's so terrible. So there'll be these very mixed reactions. So this one, okay, dissatisfaction is we're coming to the end of stage one. So this track two or stage two, dissatisfaction. If you imagine like your beans on the chart, they're going up and down like steps. And this is the way that I've always found the easiest to imagine when I'm creating playlists. Am I going up the steps or am I going down the steps? Because I'm always relating it to myself, because ultimately I'm facilitating myself. Everybody who's come into your sessions is a representation of you, and you are, yeah, you're in this process by creating a playlist. So we've gone from quite a monotonous, non-rhythmic track for satisfaction to then into something where there might be a rhythm, but there's nothing too complicated, and it's not lots of lyrics, or like this song hasn't got any lyrics at all. Mostly for the first three songs, I don't use tracks with lyrics because it can be too distracting, because people are going into the journey. And it can also draw them out of it, especially if you put something that people knew the words to the song. So if you think in terms of your body, the different areas of your body, and then different instruments, and where we hold those instruments to play them on our body. So at the level of your hips is usually, excuse me, is usually drums, djembe, tabla, darabuka. There's like Middle Eastern instruments that are played sitting down at the level of the hips as well, qanun, and so the drums have, as you know, if you're at a really nice like disco, ecstatic dance or something, if there's a really funky rhythm playing, or if you've got live drummers, it really makes you want to move your hips. So in terms of thinking about energy also moving up and down and through the body, we're bringing those kind of potentials of movement through the instruments that are in the songs. And also because it's the beginning and maybe some people are going to be flying far, far away, we want to give an anchor. So the drums are a really good way to do this. So something kind of tribally, or yeah, something that's rooted. And then I really like this song. It's actually a French guy who I've performed with, called Tattoos. And I like the Indian style of it, but also with the violin, because the violin, we hold it here. So for me, I always relate it to the heart. So I was thinking, yeah, I want these roots, but also I want to start to kind of massage the heart a little bit of yeah, encouraging it to start opening. So from satisfaction of my life is fine, going into dissatisfaction, it's like something's starting to stir. There's like an agitation, or there might be something that we don't want to feel, or we don't want to see it. It could be something that we haven't known is there before. And the other, yeah, and it can be uncomfortable as well. And this is when you're going to start more with your touch facilitation, because if you go straight in with the touch in the first moments of the first song, it can feel too overwhelming for people. You need to give them that space, and like I said, observe what's happening, make sure that you're really centered, you're ready, and then with the dissatisfaction, you are starting to stir the pot. Of course, this can be a bit different if you've got people that are more experienced and they are going straight away into something very intense. You might be with them also in stage one, but usually for new people, it's like give them space, let them breathe, let them absorb what you're saying, and then start to touch. So because like this song is very repetitive, it's more trance inducing. And from ancient times, people have always used trance as a way of connecting with their bodies and connecting with whatever they see as divinity. And there's so many things in different cultures. So from like Sufi whirling, or from zikr, from Zar, which is like from the Middle East, and it's they all involve moving the head either like this or like this, and with the Zar, there's stuff where you follow your arms as well. But my theory is because it's moving this sort of head on the axis and the neck, it's activating the amygdala and all the places that we hold trauma, and also the reptilian brain, so that we can connect back in time, and we can connect with ancient wisdoms. So trance was used as a form of celebration and a form of the community coming together. And this might be through, like with Zar, there's a lot connected to it about purging. Like if a woman has lost a baby, or her husband's died, then the women get together and they play this particular drum rhythm, which is called Zar. So for me, it's this kind of effect of a sort of self-induced trance. We're supporting that, and they can come out of that trance at any time, but there is a trance-like quality to it, which is allowing people to go out of themselves, out of their comfort zone, and out of their boundaries. Okay, anyone want to add anything?
This is the stage the starfish.
That's what, sorry?
This is the stage you begin to do the starfish. You start putting people in the star.
Yeah, like end of stage 1 going into 2. Yeah. And depending on how big your group is, you might spend this whole song putting people in position and like, yeah, if you've got 20, 30 people, it takes time to do that. And in our bean chart, for satisfaction, the bean is like, yay, life, everything's cool. Then dissatisfaction, bean is what the fuck? Like things are starting to get stirry. And we go from the delta into theta. Now, if you remember from the Bruce Lipton video last time, and he's talking about when we're babies and we're in this, well, and up to the age of 7, we're in the theta state. And this is the state, brain mind state, where we're most hypnotizable, or we're most programmable. And so, but this also means not only about programs coming in, programs coming out as well. So the way I look at it is that this theta stage, it's the same as if you go for hypnotherapy. It's like you're open to suggestions or suggestion, and your body is open with the touch. So that suggestion is, it's not that we're putting things into people's head and going, you should do this or you should be that. It's really important to keep everything open, and of course not be enforcing our own agendas into groups. But it's like how this suggestion of like an invitation, you could call it that. So if somebody is feeling really closed in their heart and stuck, and you put a hand on their shoulder, it's like an invitation of, this, like if I'm suddenly my shoulder is doing this and I don't know why, but I feel a release happening in my heart. So okay, I'll go with it. Because of course everybody has this constant chat usually that's going on, and it's like narrating the story of what's happening in a session, and it can take a bit of practice to get out of doing that. Or the chat will be going on, but you're like, okay, chat to yourself, but I'm over here doing something else. Okay, anyone else who want to add, or any questions? No. And just while it's in my mind, saying about keeping things open, as time's gone on, because at the beginning for the speaking part, I was completely terrified. I was like, shit, what do I say? How do I say it? Should I write a script? And then it's like, no, that's not going to work. And I really had to make myself just open my mouth and let whatever wanted to come out speak. And then because I was doing so much with the access consciousness trainings and everything, I realized quite early on that it was helpful to keep things in as being a question. So rather than, because some people think of it, oh, it's like I need to give them a guided meditation, but it isn't that. They will find their own way, whatever. But it's more about the questions of what if, what if you allowed yourself to relax? What might it feel like for your consciousness to expand? And as you breathe, you feel your consciousness contracting and then expanding, and how far are you willing to allow yourself to feel? So it's like open-ended questions where everybody is going to interpret it in their own way, and also everybody will hear it in a different way. Some people hear something that you've never even said, but they hear it as a different word. So whereas in stage one you're giving sort of gentle instructions for relaxation, in number two, then you could bring in more like pertinent questions of what if and how would it feel to be, and it's like you're adding to that stirring, and of course now you're starting to do the touch as well, which is also going to add to the stirring. Okay, I'm determined to get through these 12 stages in this session today. But we are going to have a break as well. So number 3 is threshold, and our being is saying this is bullshit. This song's quite long and it's got some different parts to it and it gets faster and faster. So I'm gonna skip a little bit so you can hear the different sections. But it's one that's been used in a dance by tons of people for years and years and years. And I really love it just as a song anyway to listen to. But I think we mentioned this on one of the other calls, that there's songs which have been used, say, from the early days of inner dance, and lots of people around the world have used them. So you could say that they hold an inner dance-ness to them. And I think, I should say, rather than I think, that when you first start to facilitate, it's really good to use, say, one of those songs in a playlist, because it's like you're bringing yourself into the inner danceness, and potentially bringing lots of other new people into it as well. And there just seems to be some kind of alchemy that comes from using these songs. And yeah, and obviously it's your choice. I know Kerry did a form thing, didn't you? A document with links to them ages ago.
I've got a couple of versions. So I've got the Pi did a text where he sort of writes about the different stages and the tracks to use, and I've got a document that links to those tracks for Spotify and iTunes. And then I did a much longer, more detailed document that at one point he shared a Google Drive with a lot of music on, which I think most people would say is the core music for inner dance, the stuff that everybody uses and has used over and over and over. And that's a much longer document. I can pop links for them into the WhatsApp if people would like those.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. But just to add to that, a lot of, especially people that have been involved in or facilitators and trainers involved in the last 4 years, they're not using these songs so much anymore, because now that there's been this shift into using things like my noise and synthesizers, a lot of people are creating playlists purely out of sound, and it could be sound that they have come up with themselves, because yeah, this is like a tale for another day, but there's sort of different ways that the playlists can be created. But it's really important that you get this sort of core 12-stage way that you can then build on this, because this is going to give you the basis of inner dance, really. And people always say to me, oh, can you give us playlists that we can make, that we can use? And actually this is the first training that I've given playlists, well, at all, actually, and especially giving them in any kind of like advance of us meeting. But because of this change, I felt that I needed to do it in this way, and also because there's sort of a couple of months before we actually meet in person, and I thought, yeah, it would be good that you can do this for yourself at home. But I always get messages from people after trainings, and they're saying like, this is so hard, why are you making me do this? And like, isn't there any way, can I use Tom's or Kerry's playlist or something? And honestly, for the process potentially it will also take you through, it's worth it, because and Shirley and Catherine and Kerry, like, have all been through this. When I did this, I basically had zero information in how to do it. I had a few sentences on a bit of paper, and I was like, oh my God, I don't know. I don't even know where to start. So, yeah, it also takes you through a whole different kind of learning. But when you do, you have all these pennies dropping, like, oh, okay, now I get how that relates to that, and this feeds into that. So it's a good challenge to to do. Yeah. Okay, let me just play some of the bits of this song. This song is also, I think, 7 minutes, 8 minutes. And as you can hear, it's got these different stages within it that build up in intensity. And I like it because of that, because it's, if you think about the song before and it was quite a monotonous rhythm going on, this has got more of a, it's like pushing, and our being is going uphill saying this is bullshit. And in the new 12 stages chart, it's got intensity and fear. So we're building up to a point of potential release. And this is the threshold. It's expanding on the discomfort that might be coming up from dissatisfaction, and expanding, yeah, the intensity, and allowing things to break open and break down within us. There can be resistance, there can be movement, there can be people start to shake. There, it's like everything is all happening at the same time. So their body might be twitching. They might go into fear because they hear people starting to move, or they hear sounds. So this is for you as the facilitator. You're going more into your facilitation of touching now, and it might, this is also a good time to bring in maybe instruments as well. And again, this is going to be something I have to make a list of stuff for you to bring for the when we meet in person. So like say shakers, or a drum. So something also that you're going to build up some intensity, but it might be that you shake a little bit and then you're so busy with actually going around the room as well that you need to focus on that. So there's more rhythm and more chaos in the music, and you could think of it as the body's capacity to hold more rhythm is also increasing as well, because we're pulsating, like we're running at a certain frequency, so our bodies can now take in more of this, and the cellular structure can get shaken up. And this is also then what creates the spaces in between. So it's not only the spaces between the songs, it's the spaces that are being created inside of us and around us, and in our thoughts as well, because often we can be in this like there's no let up from the minute you wake up to the minute you go to bed, and then even in your sleep there's still so much activity going on. So if there was space between your thoughts, also what might be able to come through. So yeah, anything to add, anybody? No? Okay. Then we go to stage 4, purgation, and our being is saying, "Oh Jesus," and it says release. This is now, we've come up to our first peak. We've been climbing up and up and up. We're at the top of the peak, because coming next is a delta drop. So now we've gone up to alpha and beta. And purgation is, yeah, it's on this new one, it's showing level with beta. So there's more more agitation and more stirring up. Now this can be through using a song with lyrics, which is what I've done in this playlist. And they've had the repetitive rhythm and some kinds of instruments and this more trance-like quality happening. Now we're bringing in a different surprise by maybe something that's more emotive, and this can be lyrics. It could be like this, the song I chose is in English, but it could be a song in a completely different language, and you might not even know what the lyrics are. But it's got that feeling of something that that you feel it should go here. At the same time, it doesn't have to be something with lyrics, but I'm just giving it as an example. Okay, so this is number 4. I'm going to skip this a little bit as well so you can hear different parts because it builds. So I'm sure that you recognize this song, but I've chosen a cover version of it. And what we've found over the years is that the original songs can also be really brilliant, but sometimes as that element of surprise, by using cover versions, and also because like this you'll see it's really big and orchestral, it changes the energy of the song. And also like this one, originally it was sung by men. The feeling of it when it's sung by a woman is also very different. So there's so many different ways that you can look at this. And often you're going to do it without even consciously realizing. It's not like you have to analyze every song or even listen to every word and like what exactly are they saying here. Like you don't need to do that. But the effects on people, because sometimes if it's a song that's very famous like this one, there can be too much familiarity and people are singing along with it, and then it can bring them out of the process, or they think it brings them out. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, but it can be like a distraction. But when it's like this and like, oh, I know this song, but it doesn't sound like it did before, they haven't got something so much to hook on to. I just play a bit more of it. It's a very, very Okay, seeing Catherine with her head in her hands then. What are you doing to me? So this is purgation. Often you can get a whole room might be screaming at this stage, crying, having orgasms, frozen, it's like every possible expression can come up. And think of it like a pressure cooker, and through stages 1, 2, and 3 you're building the pressure up, so you're building heat in the body, because heat carries so much information. And if you think of alchemy, the whole process is through transformation through heat, through chaos, through heat, through shaking, through filtration. But heat is the most important part of it. So we're heating up the energy, we're heating up the body to this pressure point of like it has to crack. Of course, some people are going to fight this or resist it, or maybe they don't need a huge crack. Maybe they came the month before and they had something very dramatic, and you can have everyone kicking off, and then there's somebody in the middle like, like everything's just so beautiful, and then and it's the total opposite extremes to each other. So this is a feeling of, yeah, things can change forever now. It's like there's no looking back, that everything is cracking open. Hence the oh Jesus being. Okay. All right, I'm gonna do two more and then we'll have a break. So then we're halfway. So disintegration, this is our first delta drop. And if you imagine that you're on the edge of a cliff and you have the invitation to jump, you don't know if you have wings, you don't know if there's going to be a safety net, but there's something in you saying it's time to jump, it's time to let go. Like if I really want to change these patterns in my life and these self-sabotages and whatever else is going on, it's like the only thing I can change is myself from the inside. On the other hand, the delta, because we're going back to a more feeling of stillness, it gives a feeling of, the intensity is eased off now. So when people, well, actually, even when people know, when they've been before, but the feeling is there of like, oh, thank fuck, like that real, like smashing me to pieces has stopped, and I can just relax and breathe. But what they don't realize, and what they don't know in their bodies, is that when they go into that, they're actually opening themselves even more to go even deeper. So this is disintegration, and I've done it hopefully so you can hear the change from purgation to the drop. And this is exactly the same through. So we've gone back to no distractions again. And a feeling of falling into the void. So there's no lyrics, there's not, there's nothing to hold you. How deeply you fall into that is your choice. Our being has just got 3 dots, like 0 point, and dissolution. So it's the dissolving of what we think is the self, and looking from the outside in and becoming more of a witness to ourselves. Because a lot of this process, whether you're in it or whether you're facilitating, it's about becoming the witness. And this also is into every day, every moment of your life, like being the witness to yourself so that you can see, I'm running these patterns again. Okay, I'm putting myself in this situation. I'm hiding myself, or oh yeah, I'm a bit of a bossy fucker today. It's like all the different aspects of ourselves that we can look at and then start to choose, like, actually this, yeah, how can I hone myself into a better, more integrated version of me, and let go again of the old skins and die to myself. So the disintegration is allowing all of this to percolate. Like, I've had this real, like, kind of intensity and this heat, and then suddenly there's nothing. And what do I do with myself if I'm nothing, or I'm inside nothing? Am I the nothing, or is the nothing inside of me? And all of this sort of juxtapositions of questions. And through this and the realizations that we might have, which aren't always conscious, but it's like how our body is interpreting them, the vibration can start to change because we've been shaken up, and again we've had the heat, and now how, like, my body's vibrating in a different way. Then we go to number 6, awakening, and our being is whoa, and he's rising up again and opening. And I looked at the disintegration. You've been in a black hole, or if you were on stage and it was in total darkness. And then awakening is a pinpoint spotlight, so you can't see the whole stage, you can't see all of the information, but you can see that there's a light somewhere, or the light at the end of the tunnel, and you don't know where that tunnel leads to, but it's like there's something. Having said this, this is different to what people talk about with near-death experiences, or dying and going into the light. This I don't recommend. That's a story for another day. but but from the perspective, think of it like, yeah, like a stage, and that it's total darkness. And okay, it's like this pinpoint of information of, it could be an inspiration, it could be something that's been hidden from you. And if you think of it as when you shine a light on something, an issue, or an emotion, or yeah, wherever you feel stuck, when you acknowledge it or see it in whatever way you're seeing it, it has to change because you've acknowledged it. All the time it stays hidden away, and in that void, it's like there's the repression there, and it can be sort of tucked away, and yeah, and not taken notice of. But as soon as we shine a light, it's like, okay, I'm maybe not sure what I'm going to do with you right now. However, I know that you're there, and I'm willing to take this journey with you. So I see this awakening as this. And what else did I write? So it could be that you feel like you're waking up after a long, deep sleep, because in the Delta, sometimes people do fall asleep, or they look like they're asleep. And you know how it is in the morning when you're just waking up and you're like coming to the light of day. And now this is what we call the second wave. First wave is from stage 1 to stage 4, and because that's the first stage, we are building intensity, but it's in quite a prolonged way. Like the songs are a bit longer. When we're going into the second wave, we want to create intensity a bit more quickly, and not only from the music necessarily. It's like everybody's shoving themselves like as a group, and you're with them as well, like everybody's being moved. So disintegration and then awakening, it could be that you have a song with lyrics or with some kind of voice sounds, or you might go into only music again. But you want to have this feeling of building, so that there's, okay, I've completely surrendered. And then it's like, okay, wake up. Like, what's happening here? You know, are you going to stay in the old shit, or are you going to take this opportunity? So this is that one. It's going to change over. Oh, hang on. Okay, so is there anything anyone wants to add or any questions up to now?
I was going to say, I always step back as a facilitator in 5 and 6. I try not to touch anyone unless I feel a desperate need to hold their hand or or something. I tend to step away a lot.
Mm. Yeah, and also if you have got say a drum that you work with, when it's in 5 going back to delta or 10, you'll see when we get there. Usually I don't play any kind of instruments or anything at these points, because yeah, like Catherine said, there's a feeling of stepping away, and they need to have space, because if you're constantly on them, which say if you've got a one-to-one, or even say 6 people, you're going to have a lot more time to work on them than if you had 30 people, where because when there's 30, some people might only get touched twice in a whole session. So you have to really like gauge with yourself to yeah, about over facilitation, and it's very much that less is more, and especially at these stages. So you can hear with this song, I always think of it a bit Tinkerbellish, it's like in the dark and then coming out these sparkly bits, and coming into whatever level awakening it is for the person at that time. Okay, all good so far. Yeah. All right. Should we have a 10-minute break and come back? What would it be? 8 o'clock for you? Yeah. Okay. If I'll do the pause. Oh, okay. Yeah, so just remembering that you have total freedom with the songs that you choose, and that everyone interprets it differently. And yeah, as your inner dance journey evolves, the kinds of songs that you choose is going to change as well, and what you get drawn to yeah, to represent the different stages. Right. So stage 7 is illumination. And our being has got a light bulb above his head, OMG, and expansion. So we've gone from being in the darkness to having a pinpoint of light, to now like a floodlight is being shone on whatever it is we need to see right now. Because of course, we can't sort out everything in one session. Unfortunately, there's always going to be layers and layers, and that things will show up at the right time to be looked at. And as I said earlier, sometimes it might surprise you what those things are. Often what happens as well is that people will come, or maybe they've had therapy before in a different way to work on a particular issue. They'll come to inner dance and the same thing will come again. And they might be quite perturbed by this after 20 years of psychotherapy or something. And are thinking, what, I thought this was done with years ago. And it's because there's another layer, or there's residues of it, or it's the root of the issue that they're now in a better position to be able to handle. And then it can come up, and I've had this for myself as well, especially with ancestral stuff. It's like layers upon layers upon layers, and each time the illumination gets bigger, it's like, oh, that's the next part, that's the next part, that's the next part. So we have a new perspective because we've received new information, and we can look at, where am I within my perceived problems? Am I part of the problem? Because often we're busy projecting outwards that everybody else or a particular person is the issue. But we're kind of led out of taking responsibility for ourselves and our own actions and thoughts and words. So we are coming to like, okay, so what part am I playing with this? This pattern keeps showing up in my life with different partners, say, and I'm the constant here. So what does that tell me about what's happening and why it's playing out like this? At the same time, although in the charts they're shown in a crossways, horizontal, if you think of it as a U shape, number 6 is halfway. We're halfway through the 12 stages. So this is like a choice, although we've got another stage called choice, but it's the choice of awakening. So do I continue, or do I go into resistance now? Because some people have very strong releases and things, say in purgation, and you think like, oh wow, where is this going to go to, because it's been so full on. And then they'll come to maybe stage 5, 6, 7, and they go back into themselves again, and then they might stay like that for the rest of the session. And for them, they might be able to explain afterwards, like, oh yeah, this happened, and I didn't want to look at it, or I was confused, or I was afraid. And so they curl back up. And then for other people, it might be that they've released what they need to in that intensity to begin with, and then the rest of the session can be very blissful for them, or it will keep going and going and going and going. So there's lots of variations of what can happen there as well. So from stage 1, where people are coming in more in the left brain and more in this structure, control, linearity, conditioning, and in like being the good girl or the good boy in life, we're gradually relaxing this down through being able to express this into the disintegration, and like, okay, why am I playing this character in my life, into the awakening, and am I going to continue playing this character, or what else is possible for me now? So this more controlling, dominant parts of us that are maybe just holding things together, because many people on a surface level, they look like they've got their shit sorted, but then they they come into something like innerdance, and everything can fall away from them. So it then gives an opportunity to rise up more through the right brain, and through the intuition and the spontaneity, the natural movements of the body, and the sort of connecting with the body's intelligence, rather than the sort of front-brained intelligence of who we think we should be. Yeah, so we're shining more light from new information, and anything that's in the shadows can now be seen and communicated with. Right. Oh, hang on. Sorry, so this is going out of an awakening into illumination. And remember that you are kind of building up the heat again now in a quicker way and more intensity. And just skip it. Okay. So again, this song I never used before in a playlist. I'm not even sure where it came from, but it was jumping out like, play me, put me in there. And I like it because there's words, but you can't really tell what she's saying. And also there's lots of layers over each other, some which are quite sort of glitchy and robotic sounding, and then you've got a sound over the top as well. So different people's bodies will tune into different parts of the song. And this is the same if you've got lyrics or a song with different instruments as well. They're gonna, like, for some people, those words will be very clear and they'll say, oh, that one when the woman was saying this, and you'll be thinking, what song? And they'll say, oh, about halfway, like after the song from Assassin's Creed, and you're like, oh, that song. No, but I don't know what she's saying, but they've heard something very like particular that stands out to them. And also for me, the song has got a kind of like agitated feel to it. Um and and there is a repetitive rhythm, but there's also the off rhythm as well. Because also remember, when you look at music, especially from different cultures around the world, you've got these polyrhythmic and you've got all kinds of variations of rhythm, of language, of instruments. So try not just to stick to yeah, like British or kind of Western sounding music. You've got every genre imaginable that you can choose from, and every kind of artist. And I think this is also the thing, is to watch yourself for getting into patterns about using the same kind of music in the same stage, because this can be easy to do as well. So the challenge for yourself. So this is coming into choice. No, we're at illumination. So now the next one, we're coming into choice. And for here, I chose to use something with lyrics that are more understandable, but you'll see they've got this waviness feel to them as well. And the music builds up, so I'll skip through it and you can hear it. The reason I like this song, it's from a film called Vanilla Sky, which is from years ago with Tom Cruise looking about 12 years old. And if you haven't seen it, it's a really interesting film to watch about, yeah, death again. Sort of, yeah, I won't spoil it, but it's an interesting film, and the sort of concepts of it, and especially for when it came out. And yeah, and I just really like this song in relation to that film. So although if I didn't tell you that, maybe you might recognize the song from the film, but for most people, they're probably not going to know that it's from that film. But often I'll use things like, it could be a song from a particular scene in a series or a film, and it's been chosen by the people that have created the film for a reason, to portray something. So whether it's fear or it's like love, um, whatever it is, and maybe it's been composed especially, say, for a film, and it's going to hold the energy and the emotions of that, and also of the person who's composed it. So I feel that it's important to think of it like this, in the layers of what's gone into it. And although we don't know how the composer or how the musicians might have been feeling at the time, but it's all held within that. And so with the Vanilla Sky film, and what the story holds, and then the insights it gave to me watching that years ago, it yeah, it's like representative of that and coming into this choice point. So you could also say it's liberation. So do I continue on with this unknown journey that's presenting itself to me? Do I go back to what feels safe, even though I'm not particularly happy with it? You've got more expansion, more recognition of patterns, a feeling of like I can change this, and I can keep choosing. So remembering that just because we make a choice in one moment about who we are or who we're becoming, that then doesn't mean that it's fixed forever. We can change this anytime that we want to. Um, so you so often people use some kind of what they consider to be inspiring music of like, yeah, like we're doing it. So I know at times I've used Somewhere Over the Rainbow. This is in the old innerdance songs. I think Pet Kerry, is it in the, I'm guessing it's in all, it will be in there. Yeah. Um, that's the only example I can think of that everybody would know. So this one, I don't know if it would be as what you would think of as like, oh, is that inspiring music? But for me, it inspires something. So you'll see, and it's mostly because of the words and it's got the trancey effect as well.
Sunday morning, I'm waking up. Can't even focus on a coffee cup. Don't even know whose bed I'm in. Where do I start? Where do I begin? Sunday morning, I'm waking up. Can't even focus on a coffee cup. Don't even know whose bed I'm in. Where do I start? Where do I begin? 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 Sunday morning, where do I begin? Where do I start?
Okay, so I don't know if you could hear the words that she was saying. Yeah, and she's saying like, woken up Sunday morning, I've woken up and kind of make myself a coffee cup or something, and don't know whose bed I'm in, and where do I start, where do I begin? So in terms of stirring up memories of emotions, of the question of who am I, who do I want to be? Like for me, it holds all of those things. Like it could be going back to teenage times or 20s times of like waking up in somebody's bed and like, hang on a minute, what happened there? Like how did I end up here? And is this really me? You know, that's like getting into these situations. So there's sort of different facets that is drawing on of potential memories and experiences that people have. But the part I like the most is about where do I start, where do I begin? Because her saying that, along with the sound within that they've created in the music, it feels like a spiral to me of no beginning and no ending, and just this zoom, zoom, zoom. Like actually, I'm completely lost in this. But does it matter anymore if I'm lost? Maybe I'm not lost, and maybe I need to lose myself to find myself in that classic way. Um, and yeah, so there's it's like a choice, another choice point, because it's coming up now to the end of the second stage where we've got an even bigger peak to jump from or fall from. And often it's around the sort of 6, 7, 8 point that I felt like I want a pen and a piece of paper, because I've got all these, maybe an idea about, it could be like a choreography. It's happened where there's a choreography and there's maybe 4 seconds in a song, and I've been stuck on it for weeks, and I've got a performance coming up and I just can't work out what to do there. I'll be in the middle of innerdance and suddenly I see it all laid out in front of me. Or, you know, it could be anything what's relevant to you, but this often happens to me with choreographies. And so I feel like I need a pen, I need something that I need to remember this, a bit like when you're waking up out of a dream. And so sometimes it might be then that a person gets more into their movement or more into stillness so that they can integrate the information that's coming in. Right, we're nearly there. Now we have number 9. Oh yeah, so choice, our being said it's time. And yeah, embodiment. Then we're going to 9, which is strengthening and failure. And our being is saying keep moving. And the dualities and the questions. So it can be the strength that we find through what we perceive as failures, and instead of seeing it as this went wrong and like I wasn't able to do this, or you know, it took me off of the direction I was going in, seeing what we think as failures as stepping stones that have always taken us to where we need to be, because we were always on our path anyway, even though it didn't go in the ways that we wanted to control it to go to. So this this finding resilience within ourselves, not giving up, and that everything was leading to this moment and it couldn't be any other way. It can also be the fears that we hold coming up, and also the resolve that we have and the determination to continue, and also the surrender as well. That is this resolve me trying to control things, or is it like a gritty determination? So can I change this? What will it take to change it? We're gathering info from everything that's already been shown or felt by us. We more integration. So this idea of the shadows or the hidden parts within us, being able to step forward as well, and realizing how much energy we use to keep those bits that we don't want the world to see, to keep them down and hidden from everybody. It's a feeling of, can be of victory. So it's like motivational in some ways and encouragement, and this kind of songs that or music I've often used here is quite warlike, with these like stomping and battlefields, and I've used stuff with guns, with or like Viking, sort of Eastern European type Slavic kind of marching music and this sort of stuff. But also it could be something that's got lyrics. So if I'd have not put lyrics into Choice that I just played, I might have put lyrics into this one. And I've used songs sometimes that are very fast, and then I've used others which are much slower, but the pushing is in the lyrics. So again, it's totally open, which I know can be a bit difficult to sort of then think, oh, okay, if it's all open, then where's the framework for it? But it's going with what you're drawn to. Okay, anyone want to add anything before I play this one? No.
So this is the gamma blue, isn't it? This is the different brainwave bit.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, so if on the new list of the stages, it's going up to gamma, which if you remember from last week, the gamma is the person, say, when they've been training to be in the Olympics, it's everything is coming to a central point of like everything's coming into alignment, and it's sort of one of the last hurdles, and everything is switched on, everything is aware, everything is present as well, because that's something important, that this brings you into presence. So yeah, so you can see that where the line goes up, and it's sort of going into 1 second. I'm going to put the song on because my cat is trying to get in the window. somebody's written in the chat, but I can't open it with the screen share on.
It's me, Katie, just being picky, really. And I don't read the chart as saying that this is gamma here. I think gamma is for unity.
Yeah, because choice is coming up, isn't it, to
Yeah,
beta.
yeah,
Yeah, and then strengthening failure is coming down into alpha.
yeah.
Yeah. No, thank you.
Sorry to be picky, but yeah.
No, it's true. It's confusing now looking at these two charts against against each other because how she's changed it.
Yeah.
Having said that though, I do think that this stage has got this feeling of everything coming into like, right, I'm ready to go and I'm going to do this. And you can hear that it's got a very different feeling to the where do I stop, where do I begin? Like she's gone from waking up in somebody's bed unknown to then like, oh, right, I'm ready for action. And so also don't be afraid to have totally different types of songs after each other, because this is what gives the surprise and the shock and the sort of triggering as well. So it's good that if you do have like really different things, because if the playlist is going along and it's quite nicey and same kind of music, like I don't know, you've taken it all off Smash Hit 17 or something, then it's I don't know what year that would be. Kylie Minogue, Jason Donovan or something. Then well actually that would be quite triggering. But you've had people going, turn this shit off. but, but you know what I mean though. So if you've got something where the music is very similar all the way through, similar tempo, similar lyrics, or yeah, just got this same feeling, it's not going to give enough pushing and pulling and jolting. So you need to have enough changes and transitions that they can't predict what's coming. So yeah, this is for strengthening and failure. So it's the duality that we are living in within ourselves. So now we're going into Dark Night of the Soul. This is number 10. I've been after saying keep moving. He's now going no. And often people will think that this is the end of the session when you're going into Dark Night of the Soul, but actually it's the third wave, or there's 3.5 waves. And on the new chart it says letting go. So with the Dark Night of the Soul, it's more than a void, because a void you could think of as being suspended. But the Dark Night of the Soul is the abyss. It's the abyss of the abyss. And it's a time to wallow and to get into your tears, into your grief, into maybe being a victim sometimes. This will show up lots and lots of times with people. It's a chance to also be humble as well, and like this overwhelm of emotions that can come, and if we've had the realizations of the part that we're playing in all of this, and that's why the story has been continuing, it's because we've not made the changes within ourselves. It can be very humbling. So within this stage, do we give ourselves to the complete hopelessness of what feels like hopeless, or do we still resist it? So can we surrender? And depending on how much somebody can surrender in this stage, it will affect their perception of their whole journey of the 12 stages. And yeah, it can also bring a range of emotions, grief, anger. It can be that feeling of boiling point again from stage 9. It can feel, I've written hellhole here, I think, because I felt like that before in this stage. Like, I never get out of this fucking hellhole of, like, of blur. And going back to what I said at the beginning about the kinds of instruments to use, it can be really nice to have big type music. So lots of films and series these days, like, and Hans Zimmer, he's a composer that his music is used in so many films now. And it's got this big expansion, but also lots of emotion because of what they want to instigate in people watching the films. So instruments like violin, piano, cello, think about the strings of the heart, and we play these instruments from whirling, Sufi whirling. The arms and the fingers are an extension of the heart space and the expression of the stories that we hold there. And when you're turning, and what are you bringing into your heart to expand into the world? And then what are you sharing from your heart with the world? So for me, this stage is, yeah, it's like the bursting into the heart. And through that, there has to be a release at some level of emotions. And also within this area in Chinese medicine, it's the place that we store grief. And so this is in the lungs. So this whole place, it can be completely locked in for people, like they've put their heart on ice and put a cage around it. So yeah, again, lots of choices of music. I used one that you probably mostly recognize, but I used a cover version again. Let's see if you recognize it.
Cause it's a bittersweet symphony that's like trying to make ends meet. You're a slave to the money that you died. I'll take you down the only road I've ever been down.
So again, this song was jumping and jumping, like put me here, put me here. And I really like the lyrics to this as well. It's the Verve, if any of you remember them. And depending on what day I made this playlist, I could easily have put that song as number 9, Strengthening and Failure. I could have also put it in the unitive states as well. I could have also put it in Awakening as well. So depending on my interpretation and my mood that day or that moment, I could have put it in several different places. But for that day, I felt like I wanted to put it here. And when I was making it, I realized, and maybe you'll see when you listen through, that there's a sort of thread that I've followed from the second song with the violin, where here, yeah, the second one, and then the one of the others around 6 or 7, there's violin, and then there's violin again here. So although the songs that I used in the Delta for stage 1 and 5 were both quite space related and this expansive voidness, I also felt like I wanted to have a thread of the violin with the heart throughout it. Why? I don't know. Maybe that's what we needed to hear. But you'll see that even without knowing that you've done it, like I've even had sessions, because usually when I play it song by song, I do it in the moment intuitively. I never create a playlist like pre-recorded. I did at the beginning, but as the time went on, I would start to fiddle around and think, no, I need this song next, and I need this one. So then suddenly I'll find there'll be a theme of water or something, or I'll switch it onto a song exactly at the moment when there's a particular sentence about the emotions and the sea and things. And these are from thousands of songs that I've got in my phone. And I don't know all the words that are contained within each song. So it's like you get guided into these certain themes of emotions within playlists, and that are sort of unexplainable. So we'll have to see when you lie down properly and listen to it all the way through. We'll see what happens with this one. Okay, so now we're going to unitive states, and our being says I see, and this is now where it's gone up to the gamma, but it's about trust. So also for me, the unity is about the going through this journey together, and the feeling of not being alone in this, that because sometimes you can feel that everyone in the room is okay, and I'm the only one that's sobbing and getting in a mess. But actually, a lot of people will be doing the same thing. You just maybe can't hear them, or you're not aware of them. And between stages 10 and 11 is often a feeling of, like, fuck this, I've been doing this shit for so long, and how long am I going to keep fucking myself up? And yeah, like, enough is enough. Also, because people have been in the abyss, you need something that's going to gradually draw them up, like a rope ladder, because you can't go from all the way down here to all the way up here immediately, because there's too like it's too much of a juxtaposition. There needs to be a sort of bridge somewhere. So it could be that if you're doing literally one song per stage, it could be that you have a song that builds up. So there's a bridge and it moves up and through. And this is where the 3.5 stages come in, is that At 11, you're again moving through sort of delta, theta, alpha to come into reintegration for stage 12. And yeah, also the realization that dealing with your shit can be fun. It's like a chance of a last squeeze. Lots of people, if they're trying to control and they're holding back their emotions, somewhere within themselves, or maybe because they've been to inner dance before, or they're a facilitator, they know that the end is coming. So this will be a moment when they finally let some stuff out. And it could be a song, say in Dark Night of the Soul, if you haven't had something with lyrics and it's just been instrumental, you might want to have something with lyrics now, because the lyrics also give something to like draw people out and like, oh, okay, I don't know what they're saying, but there's something to take me, like moving them through the misery of. Or some people are again in complete happiness and joy in Dark Night of the Soul, because maybe that can also be a different interpretation of their emotions at that time. So it's not enforced that they have to cry. Number 10. And also, if people don't cry, don't feel that, oh, I've made a mistake, I used the wrong song or anything like that. Sometimes people just don't. So from the Dark Night of the Soul to into the unitive states, if you imagine that you're holding the polarities at the same time, there's the darkness and the light, and then there's all the shades in between. And our being says, I see. And he's moving up and up and up. So let's see here. This song I also layered because, well, you'll see why, I guess. But yeah, I just felt like I wanted to use it, but because it's with his words, I wanted there to be something else underneath. Just to add to this, sorry, I forgot this is where I overlaid again. It was at the beginning and the end. So because I'd had lyrics in Dark Night of the Soul, I didn't want there to be then more lyrics immediately, because it's like the chatter going on again. Also, to come into unity and coming out of the abyss, you might want to have something that's quite like it's holding light. So this could be a mantra, or like gospel singing, or something that's not necessarily religious, but it's got this sort of like, yeah, just light. this sort of like spiritual coming into the light out of the darkness. So I put this one that I've just been playing, and it builds, and then it will come into with the voice as well in a moment.
We stand at the threshold of a great dawning. Something deep within life is changing. An era is ending. And at the very core of creation, something new is being born. We are awakening from a long collective sleep.
So there's two songs happening here. One is the man's voice with the drum and with the sort of ho ho, like Native American Indian sound, and then the other one is a more Delta one, continuing from what was playing on its own before. So it's sort of filling. I wanted it to fill the space so that there's this gradual rising coming up and out of the dark night of the soul, but at the same time there's still a feeling of expansion and being in the void. So they're gradually coming up, and then with having the drum rhythm again, it's coming back to what I said at the beginning about the hips and the pelvis and the grounding feeling, like boom boom, like okay, I'm here, I have a physical body. And they can hear what he's saying with the lyrics, which if they've been completely lost in themselves, it's giving them a line, like a lifeline to come back with. Just play a little bit more of it.
In vitro dreaming deep within the womb of our Mother Earth. Now is the time of a great shifting of cosmic wheels, which will result in the reformation of our Earth and trigger a radical shift in consciousness. The galactic tidal wave of light is descending upon the Earth, activating the highest potential, raising the frequency. Reality is being reformed, redefined. Gathering communities
So
and trigger a radical.
so this man just doesn't stop talking. And I then wanted to bring more of a focus just onto him, because this is now coming into the last song and bringing people back. So then I took out the rhythm and the delta, and then there's more clarity in hearing him.
Shift in consciousness. The galactic tidal wave is redefined to these high dimensional frequencies. Open yourself. Remember that this too shall pass, and is in spreading her wings for the first time. She has no idea whether she can fly. She simply opens her wings in perfect confidence and is as one vast ocean of love and light. let the divine recognize consciousness and set the world alight in its magnificence.
So then I faded his voice out and out and out gradually to stage 12. We got there with 2 minutes to go. Reintegration. And I really appreciate you all for your focus. I know that this is like, there's so much to take in, and you're going to have the recording to go back on, but when we're together, for sure we're going to be looking at this again in the brain waves, and yeah, we'll go over it again and again. So the reintegration is coming back to stillness. So the cycle or the spiral has completed for now, to then be able to go to another level the next time. It's a chance for reflection, for a state of equilibrium, feeling in more harmonized within ourselves, more oneness, feeling of connection with everyone and everything, and knowing that we're a part of a whole and part of a much bigger story than we've been led to believe. And say you hadn't used songs with any lyrics at all for like 9, 10, 11, you could have something that started maybe just some kind of gentle lyrics, so not a full-on song, but it could be again like a soft mantra, or something like Waves on the Beach again. What you use for stage 1, you could use for stage 12 as well. This can sometimes be really nice because it again brings this feeling of like a completion of something. So, or it could be something from nature, which is what I used here. It's supposed to be long grass in the breeze, but I think it sounds like the sea. So either way, however you interpret it. And yeah, and it can be you know, like, what's the moral of my stories? What am I taking from this? And am I, yeah, leaving, like coming out of the space in a better, from a better place than when I arrived here? And it's important also to give time for this reintegration stage, because people can be all over the place sometimes. And this is really important to give at least 10 minutes. Sometimes I've had to give 20, 25 minutes to groups because they've gone so deep. And I've even maybe had a song that's 15 minutes and then had to have 10 minutes of silence before they're able to actually get off the mat. So doing it for under 10 minutes, I mean, if say you're at a festival or something and you only had like an hour time slot, you're going to have to shorten everything anyway. And this is something we can talk about another day. But yeah, as I said earlier, every stage is equally important, and it's important not to cut corners. So this reintegration, they've maybe come in at this level and you've gone up and down and up and down, and you want them to leave at a different level, but not so high that they can't do anything, and also not down here. You're not leaving them in dark night of the soul in the abyss. So you're bringing them to this, yeah, like, I'm here, I'm in my body, like everything is clear, I can speak, I can drive. And then after this, you're then going to have the sharing, and again, that's for another day. But also equally important is your introduction at the beginning and the sharing at the end, and it's all part of the embodiment of the process. So don't let people escape. If they say, oh, I have to leave because of the babysitter, no, tell them, okay, don't come, you know, like, come on a day when you can be in there for the whole session. Or ask your babysitter to stay longer. But yeah, this, I feel, is like, yeah, you can't cut the corners on this, because it's really for the safety of the people, to make sure, like, you know, that they're safe to leave the space. Okay, so just a little bit of this last one, and then we're done. And this goes up and down, louder and softer for, I don't know, 12 minutes or something for till the end of the playlist. Yeah, and then this would and I put extra time to give me more space again in case I needed it. And our bean says it's done. We got there. And on the new chart it says rebirth. So yeah, we rebirthed ourselves. Okay, does anybody want to add any thoughts?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has different ways of perceiving things, right? Everyone has their own story. How do you know that the song that you've chosen is going to have the desired effect of the brainwaves?
You don't know. That's part of the fun and also part of the terror. Maybe like, who knows? And I'm glad you asked that because it reminded me of something I thought in the break and then I forgot. Yeah, we can't control it. What something means to us as we make the playlist, and also it's good not to attach it. Like I explained more about the songs and why I chose them tonight for the sake of like we're in a training, but I'm not usually analyzing it to that depth for myself. I'm like, okay, this is the one that I need. And I'm not going too deeply into it because I don't want there to be any kind of attachment to it. So also for this reason, I have tried a couple of times to sort of not name playlists because I've never really done fixed playlists, but have a theme for a particular session. And there seems to be a trend at the minute in inner dance world about naming playlists. And really, I can't be asked to keep coming up with new names for playlists. I'm like, I don't see the point because, yeah, I have a lot to say about this, but I feel like if I'm naming it, whether it's naming the playlist or naming, okay, this day at this time is like, come and heal your inner child with inner dance. Like I'm putting that expectation onto it, and maybe I'm limiting the possibilities of what people could experience by naming it that. So I prefer to keep everything as open as possible because then also there's no pressure on me that people are like, you said it's like heal your inner child, and like I don't feel anything about my inner child. It's like, well, I can't do anything about that. So I feel like the less pressure you put on yourselves, the better. But yeah, there is a sort of thing at the minute of people naming the playlists. I think also because people want to do research as well, like say about cancer or about sleep or like particular illnesses and things. But unless you want to, then yeah, I just say like focus for actually making the playlist. But what happens within that, and like I said, each person is a representation of an aspect of you. So you might have 20 people in there all showing you 20 different sides of yourself acting out in different ways. You've got this stroppy one that's like shouting, like, turn this fucking shit off. Like, well, I'm going to smash the speaker. And then you've got another one who's just hiding in the corner and is like too scared to look. And then you've got another one like rampaging around, and then another one like thinks they're a big slug and they're rolling, and like another one who's just like up and dancing. And you look around and you're like, oh my God, this is like I can see myself there and there and there and there and there and there. And it's like I'm also not saying that it's all about us either as the facilitator, but they're representing us and we're also representing them. So the mirroring that comes in, and I feel like I don't want to control any of that. So we're making the playlist in how we feel when we make it, and then we just leave it open. And we see what happens. So it's also a bit of a going into the abyss as well. Yeah. But there's absolutely nothing right or wrong in doing this. It just is as it is. And I'm sorry because we've gone over a little bit, but I want to say this because it's important. As I said earlier, you're going to learn so much by making your own playlists. And if it's the first time that you're making it, and say you've got a session that you're going to do, and you think, oh, I know, I could use that playlist from in the training that Katie shared with us, or something, because or Catherine's playlist, because she's got more experience than me. So that means then her playlist must be better. But this really isn't the case, and it's not about what's better, not better, experience, not experience. It's like what's coming from you. And people have done this when I've recommended, don't do it that way. And then they've come back to me and they said, oh, okay, I understand now. And because people are coming to you for you and what you hold, and what the playlist holds that you've created. So I feel like this is important to, be your own creation. Okay. Any final final snores? Or no. Okay. And any questions, please write them in the chat, and I can answer, or one of us can answer there. And anything, even if you think, oh, this seems really silly, or I didn't understand this bit, please ask. Okay. All right, so I'll see you next week. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks a lot,
Bye
Kate.
bye.
Thank you. Good
Bye.
night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks, Katie.